Today about Tripal, and for any of you who saw my presentation at PEG, this is not the same one, even though it looks very similar. So there are differences. Some of it's the same. So I'm going to sort of just jump right into it. What is Tripal, for any of you that don't know? Tripal is a tool to create community-based organism websites, and it does not have to be a model organism website. With all of the additional sequencing that we're getting, really this works even if you just have a single lab with some data and you really want to get it out there. This is a good tool for you. It supports a variety of non-biological functions, so if you want to have forums, if you want to have a place to host your community conference, all sorts of things like that are handled through Drupal, so you can do it with Tripal as well. Its main purpose is to display various data that's in Shadow for analysis or even sharing purposes. You can incorporate spreadsheet data without conversion and with as little administration as possible, although it does take a really good knowledge of Shadow just to determine where your data should go. And so what it's trying to accomplish, we really want to simplify the construction and maintenance of biological databases. We want greater flexibility of these websites so that you can extend it in a variety of non-biological ways. You can change your branding if you need to do that, all sorts of things like that. Greater expandability. Of course, this is one solution, and we try to be as general as possible, but sometimes it might not work for you. Sometimes you might have specialized use cases. Tripal is developed with that in mind. There's all sorts of great functionality to make it so that you can extend it and customize it. And also reusability. It doesn't make sense for everybody to go out and program their own organism database. This allows a group of us to program it and then everybody else to benefit from that. So, what is Tripal? As I've alluded to already, Tripal is built on top of Drupal, which is a content management system. So this essentially allows you to have professional websites out of the box. Drupal is used by a variety of people to create everything from blogs to e-commerce sites to political websites, etc. It's also built on top of Shadow to store all of the biological data. And Tripal is a Drupal module that links all of the data in Shadow to Drupal. So it creates pages in Drupal for Shadow data. It does not duplicate any Shadow data at all, except for the keys to just link the pages to the data in Shadow. So a little bit about Drupal. It's huge. The core itself has a variety of functionality built right in, but if there's things, and you can choose which parts you want through a nice checkbox interface that I'm going to show. If the functionality that you want is not in core Drupal, there are over 25,000 modules out there, many of which are very, very good, that you can just download for free. And you literally download it, you put it in your Drupal installation, you check a checkbox, and it's installed. So it is very easy to maintain. And there's automatic update telling you when you need to update those modules. There's almost 2,000 free themes and many non-free themes out there, and this allows you to change the look and feel of your site with literally a click. You just download it and then you enable it. So you don't have to have that default Drupal look that just looks like you're using Tripal. You can look completely different from everyone else if you so feel inclined. But you don't have to. You can also just install Tripal and use it and not care. Drupal is as secure as PHP can be, because there is a large community of very security-conscious developers out there who are keeping Drupal as secure as possible. There are regular security updates if they're needed. It's used to build e-commerce sites, so those people who are dealing with money are extremely motivated to make sure that their sites don't get hacked. And I prefer for them to deal with it and me not have to worry about it. You get out-of-the-box professional websites. So you get users, you get permissions, you get searching, you get menus, you get file upload, you get image handling. You get all of this stuff for free so that you, as a bioinformaticist, can worry about the biological data and not all of the nonsense that is running a website. As I said, it's built on Shadow, which many of you know and love. It's preferred for a Tripal installation that Shadow be within the Drupal database in a separate schema. It doesn't have to be. We have support for if you have your own external Shadow. The only thing is that if you do that, then you don't get a lot of the really nice Drupal views integration, simply because Postgres won't allow us to join between tables in two different databases. Yes?
Can you explain a little more what you mean within the Drupal database?
So the idea is that you have, so Drupal has its own schema. It's a database-driven content management system. So it has its own set of tables that are in the public schema. And then your entire Shadow instance is in a Shadow schema within your Drupal database. So it's in a separate namespace. They don't have to know that each other exists unless we allow them to know that the other exists. But it allows joining between tables when you tell the user that both schemas exist. Did that help? Mm-hmm. It can still be used with Shadow, with all of the GMOD tools that use Shadow. This hasn't been tested very well as far as I know, but really you should just be able to create a user that only knows about the Shadow schema and thinks that that's the default schema. And as long as any of the GMOD tools, as long as none of those tools have hard-coded public dot in their SQL, it will work.
So I can tell you that the command line Gmod Shadow bulk loader for GFF works with it, the gbrowse works with it, and Apollo works with it. I think Apollo did have a couple of public dot hard-coded into it, but I got them to expunge them.
Oh, that's good.
So
there we go. For those of you who don't know and love Shadow, it houses a variety of different data types. Not all of these have pages in Tripal, but all of it is supported through the Drupal Tripal views. So you can create listings of any data in Shadow, including data that isn't normally in Shadow. This allows for the flexibility of if you put something in Shadow differently from the way others put something in Shadow. It also handles materialized views and custom tables. So if you have added some additional tables to your Shadow instance because it didn't handle things that you wanted it to, this will also work with Tripal, and you can still query them with the interface. The requirements for Tripal: it needs a server, it needs a web server. We do most of our testing on Ubuntu. I'm pretty sure it would work on the Mac servers and probably on the Windows servers.
It does.
Oh, great. But we don't do our testing on there. If you run into any problems, just tell us and we will work to fix them. It needs a Postgres database because it's got Shadow. It's best on PHP 5, although which version of PHP 5 is up to you. I think 5.3 is what's preferred for Drupal 6. We are testing right now with 5.5 for the Drupal 7 version. And you need a server with sufficient memory and processor dependent upon your data. As far as installation goes, I would say it's extremely easy. For Drupal, you literally download it and put it in your web directory and create a database. And it does the rest of the installation through the web interface. With Tripal, it's much the same. You download it and you put it in your Drupal installation, and you literally enable it through these checkboxes, which is the main way to install things through Drupal. And you just click Save Configuration, and it does everything else behind the scenes for you. So I would say that's as easy as installation as you can get. Shadow As far as Chatto installation, if you've already installed it using the Perl modules and all of that, that will work great. If you don't want to deal with Perl dependencies and all of that, we have our own Chatto installer. This is the same Chatto that you would get from the Perl module, except that you don't get the bulk loaders and all of the supporting Perl scripts. But other than that, it is the same Chatto. It is not modified. It has the additional functions. And you can literally install it by clicking the install upgrade and running the Tripal job system. So. And you can upgrade it the same way, which is great. One of the main things that Tripal provides are individual pages for some of the content, so features, stocks, publications. You can choose which ones you want by clicking a checkbox to decide which parts of Tripal you want, depending upon your data. So organisms, features, stocks. Here's an example of an organism page. The stuff here at the top is default Tripal, as is this nice pie chart here at the bottom, although the middle they have added specifically for the citrus genome site, which just highlights how easy it is to add content specific, especially non-biological content specific to your sites. This is a germplasm page on NoPulse. It has a completely different look. It has a toolbar up here at the top. Again, very similar to the displays that are in default Tripal, sorry. And this is a featured page again from the citrus genome. So it just sort of gives you an idea. Yes.
Can you do AJAX calls out of Tripal?
Yes. And Drupal 7 handles AJAX much, much, much better. As far as the individual pages go, so you have two levels of granularity to decide what pages you want. With Tripal, we have separated into modules based on type. So if you don't have any stock data, you just don't enable Tripal stock, and you don't get any of those pages. But we also have an additional level of granularity, especially with feature data. You often don't want pages for all of your feature types. So you can actually select in here which feature types you want to create pages for. The page creation is a separate process, a syncing process that creates this content, so you do have to run that periodically as your data changes. And you can also choose which organisms you want to sync. So if you have a database that has a multitude of organisms, but you only want a community website for one of them, you can only sync things from that one organism. You don't have to change your Chatto database from underneath. My talk's gonna integration with Drupal views. So this is one of, this is my pet project with the Tripal project. This is how we create all of the listings and the searches and a lot of the administration for Tripal. You can expose filters to the user, so you don't have to create a separate listing for each type of data and various things like that that your users might want to see. Instead, you can provide what looks like an advanced search form to allow them to filter the views to the data that they actually care about. So this is an example of a really complex custom view, just to show the real power of it. This is genotyping data from the NoPulse website. And as you can see, we have added a column for a variety of germplasm. And which germplasm is being showed up here is actually controlled by this exposed filter. And so each user that comes in is going to care about a different set of germplasm, and they can add it through here. And they can add as many as the server can handle them adding, or as few as they want. They can even filter based on polymorphic if they only want to see the markers that are polymorphic. As far as searching, it can be customized through Drupal Views interface, which I'll show a little bit later. You can have your results as the nice tables that you've seen, which is pretty standard for biological content. You can also list them as grids or as HTML lists or even as unformatted and add templates to format it however you might want.
What's the difference between a table and a grid?
A table has the nice lines around your content,
Well, it's
whereas
probably
a grid
sortable, right?
and is sortable. And where with a grid you would have one box where it would list all of the fields, another box where it lists all of the fields. So with the table you end up with the long list similar to your Excel sheet. Advanced searching capabilities as well as simple keyword searching capabilities. This is an example of more of an advanced search form. You can, for feature data, selecting which organism they care about, type, even giving in a snippet of the name, and then they click search, and this is a table listing of their data. And they can click on the headers to sort and various other things. Drupal triple views. So this Drupal views creates SQL queries without you needing to know any SQL whatsoever. It has a user interface, and behind the scenes we describe our table setup to Drupal views. Then you literally just go in. This is an example of a Drupal views interface, and you click on the add, and from the list you add all of the fields you care about. You click, if those fields are in different tables, it will automatically make the joins that are necessary, and it knows what those joins are. You can just click on add for any filtering that you want. You can do that filtering behind the scenes, or you can expose it to your users and allow them to change it. You can even, down here that's off the edge, you can add sorting on various fields, and you can combine those fields. The filters in the new Drupal Views 3, which is the one with the new Drupal 7 release, is actually capable of doing, you can put your groups for your joins, for your filters, so that you can say, I want this field and this field, or this field and this field. That functionality is there with the new Drupal views, and Drupal supports it. You can set all sorts of things for the various website where your listing should be, whether there should be a menu item, pagers, all of that is handled for you. Triple views is where we actually describe to Drupal the integration of, like the table structure of Chatto. We've also abstracted a lot of that. With Drupal, you just hard code it, and I hate hard coding. So instead, we now have it stored in the database in an editable, we have a UI for going in and changing your field types or which handlers you want to use. If you have custom ways that you want to handle any of the data, you can just change it from a select box. It's also extendable to custom Chatto tables that you, specifically ones that you create through the custom tables interface in Tripal, or even just describe using the schema API that's part of Tripal. And it's also extendable to materialized views in case you feel the need to speed up and reduce some of the joins that you're dealing with Chatto. This is an example of the Tripal views integration. It lists all of the integrations. You can have multiple integrations per table, and it will take the one with the lightest priority, which is a Drupal way of going about it. And you can export these integrations between your sites, which makes it really nice for development versus production. Loading of data, we have some loaders provided for common data types, GFF3, Multifasta, OBO. These are just nice, fully described HTML forms with help text that tells you exactly what you need to enter. There's a ridiculous number of options, most of them optional, so that you can really describe what the file is that you're loading. You can even care about database things. You can use a GFF file to delete the features that are in your GFF. You can use it to update, all sorts of things like that. The default is to do it in a transaction, but you don't have to. We also have the generic bulk loader, which is one of my favorites, and this will allow you to load any tab delimited file that you have in any way that you would like into Shadow, and do it through the web interface without creating a custom script to load each one. You simply create a template through the user interface that maps the columns in your tab delimited file to the Shadow, and you can even specify constants, you can specify the relationships between those records, you can do multiple records per table. If you need that functionality, you can even do regular expressions to transform the data in the spreadsheet to a different format before putting it into the database. Then you reuse that template with multiple files to load the data in, and you can let other people deal with that step. So this is just an example of a template for a very simple template for adding organisms. You have your records up at the top and your fields down at the bottom. This is an example of the job creation. So once you then want to load an actual organism file, you specify the file, the template the template you're going to use. You get this page. You can actually expose the constants to the people creating the jobs so that you can have one template that works with one set of constants or another set of constants. You can have multiple constant sets, which is great when you're loading genotype data. You can create a much simpler template for loading one column of an Illumina Golden Gate file, and then allow them to create different constant sets to add all of those columns. I think it has a very intuitive administration. As of the new Drupal 7 version that's not quite out yet, there's many filters to narrow the listings to those that you're interested in. There's actual listings in the administration so that you can see that your data did actually load, and hopefully correctly. There's even edit links right on there if it's one of the types that is linked to pages. One of the great things about the administration is, again, it's using the Drupal views. So if you have certain additional links that you would like in your administration, you can add them, you can change the fields that are in there. It has complete and total customizability. There's even a settings tab and a help tab right on the top of the listing, which I will show you here. There's a help. The controlled vocabulary terms don't have a configuration, so the tab isn't here. But if you run into trouble, you can just click on that help tab, and soon it will have very helpful text. But at the moment, it doesn't quite yet. Though it does, they do have tabs.
The vocabulary column, is that retrieved from the OBO file, or is that an ontology?
That is from the CV table. All of this data is directly from Shadow. And so it is after you have already loaded your OBO in.
So it also, Shadow comes preloaded with the CV terms, or?
No, but the CV loader does have a nice drop-down menu for the main ones that are loaded through the Shadow loader that you.
So I repeat, is the values underneath the vocabulary column, are they harvested from the OBO file that you loaded, or is that something that you gave yourself?
It would be. I'm not as familiar with the actual OBO file formats, but it would be the name of the vocabulary.
Yeah, so it would come from the OBO.
Okay.
You don't add them yourself.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to have a name conflict, a
Oh.
namespace conflict.
And you can edit them through the user interface if you don't like the name that was added by your OBO. The Developers API. I encourage anyone who is going to extend Tripal to use this API, not only because I put a ridiculous amount of work into it, but also because we will make sure that our Developers API is as backwards compatible as Drupal will let us. And this will actually insulate you from many of the changes between Drupal major versions, which will make it a lot easier for you to update your modules. This is an example of showing you how documented this API is. We actually have our own Doxygen site that shows you all of the comments that are in the code. It tells you which functions are available, what those parameters are, what the return is. It even has example usage code for using a lot of this functionality. Our developers